They say that life is full of surprising encounters, but what happens when they lead to dark and unimaginable paths? In the peaceful city of San Jose, a misplaced letter and a change of plans set off a chain of events that even the police could not foresee. Can an unexpected success transform someone's life in unexpected ways? And what happens when love and obsession intertwine, leaving devastating consequences? The answers to these questions unveil a story that defies the bounds of believability. Andrew Beckby seemed to have it all. Raised in a model family with his parents Caitlin and David, his life revolved around dedication and hard work. His mother, a respected nurse, and his father, a software engineer, instilled strong values in him from a young age. If you're fascinated by unraveling the darkest mysteries and exploring gripping true crime stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and become part of our investigative community. Let's dive into the case. Andrew's arrival into the world was a miracle. After years of failed attempts and frustration, the family moved to suburban San Jose, where he blossomed into a friendly, committed, and dreamy young man, even excelling in scouts. His life took a turn in 1995, when a lost letter confirmed his admission to Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. There he found a new purpose, immersing himself in his studies with a determination that led him to overcome the initial disappointment of rejections. However, fate had different plans. In his third year, the spring of 1999 brought with him Shirley Turner, a woman 12 years his senior, a professor and graduate of the same university. Their relationship initially sparked joy among those around him, relieved to see him recovering from the breakup with Heather, his college sweetheart. But Shirley was not what she seemed. The relationship started to fall apart over time. Age and personality variations, along with upsetting habits, showed what no one could have imagined. What began as a romantic connection soon became something that would forever mark the lives of Andrew and those around him. Shirley's behavior, marked by erratic attitudes and relentless control over Andrew, began to crumble her surroundings' perception of her. While her medical career flourished on the surface, her confrontational nature generated constant tensions in the hospitals where she worked. Rumors of arguments with colleagues and inappropriate behavior toward patients soon surrounded her. Despite this, Shirley maintained an unwavering determination not to let Andrew go. When he moved to Syracuse to begin his medical career, many believed the distance would be enough to break the bond between them. However, Shirley defied any logic. She traveled constantly to visit him, even using trivial excuses, such as a supposedly lost purse. Her insistence reached an alarming point when it was discovered that Andrew's personal items had disappeared from his apartment after one of these visits. Although the facts indicated a clear breach of trust, Andrew, consumed by a sense of duty and damaged self-esteem, chose to ignore the signs. Eventually, he sought a fresh start in the small town of Lathrop, Pennsylvania, in 2001. There he found a peaceful environment, perfect for pursuing family medicine, his true passion. The local community offered him a warm welcome, and he began to build the foundation for a respected and fulfilling career. Despite this, Shirley did not give up. Her calls and messages intensified, filling Andrew's days with a constant pressure that left him exhausted. In September of that year, Shirley released an unexpected revelation. She was pregnant and claimed Andrew was the baby's father. The news left him at an emotional crossroads. The thought of being a father filled him with excitement, but the prospect of maintaining an unbreakable bond with Shirley terrified him. As he tried to reconcile his desire to start a family with the reality of their complicated relationship, events took an unexpected turn that would forever shape the course of his life. On the morning of November 5, 2001, Andrew Beckby had a bad feeling that he couldn't get rid of. His workday passed in a state of nervousness that did not go unnoticed by his colleagues. The arranged meeting with Shirley that evening at Keystone Park seemed to be the last chance to end a relationship that had become suffocating. Andrew's mind was made up, and his subsequent plans included a respite with his best friend Clark, who was waiting for him at a bar to celebrate the final breakup. But that celebration never happened. Clark, noticing Andrew's absence, tried to justify his delay by assuming that the conversation with Shirley had been extended. The next day, however, when Andrew failed to arrive for his shift at the hospital, concern turned to alarm. At 9 a.m., just as Clark was considering contacting the police, the news broke the silence. A body had been found in the Keystone Park parking lot, next to a Toyota Corolla. The victim was wearing scrubs. It was Andrew. Horrors filled the crime scene. The body lay on the ground, surrounded by evidence that spoke of a cold, calculated execution. The bullets, fired from multiple angles, suggested that the attacker had planned every move. The final shot, fired from behind, made it clear that Andrew had no chance to defend himself. A passerby passing through the area had found the body around 6 a.m., kicking off an investigation that would shake the entire community. At the hospital, a colleague of Andrew's wasted no time in pointing out a possible culprit. His detailed description of the toxic relationship between Andrew and Shirley, as well as his plans to meet her the night before, provided investigators with a first name on the suspect list. When agents contacted Shirley, she was already in Canada, her hometown. She claimed to have been in Iowa all day due to illness, and then traveled to her parents' home. However, investigators were not convinced. Her alibi presented gaps that would soon become the focus of an exhaustive investigation. The pieces quickly began to fall into place, revealing a disturbing picture of Andrew's final days. Shirley's statements were crumbling under the weight of evidence. Eyewitnesses identified her Toyota RAV4 parked next to Andrew's car in Keystone Park on the night of the crime, while surveillance video and phone data confirmed her presence at the scene. Investigators quickly found out that Shirley had just bought a .22 caliber pistol and had been training with an expert instructor for hours. This detail became crucial when the instructor described a peculiar defect in Shirley's gun. It would sometimes eject intact cartridges along with the fired casings. At the murder scene, detectives found 5 shell casings and 1 unused cartridge, corroborating the story. Even so, Shirley told the cops she lost the gun when they asked for it, which made them even more suspicious. Andrew's farewell ceremony turned into a puzzling scenario. Shirley attended, exhibiting behavior that oscillated between drama and manipulation. Throughout the service, she wept in an exaggerated manner, drawing disapproving looks among those present. Heather, Andrew's ex-girlfriend, tried to avoid any interaction, but Shirley insisted on talking to her. The conversation was disturbing. Shirley obsessively repeated that her connection with Andrew was unique and eternal, claims that caused Heather enough alarm to seek a restraining order. Shortly after the ceremony, Shirley hastily fled to Canada. The strategy of Andrew's relatives to organize a memorial service to lure her back to the United States failed when they received an outright refusal from her. Faced with this situation, the U.S. authorities initiated a process of collaboration with their Canadian counterparts, a procedure that proved slow and plagued by legal obstacles. On December 12, 2001, Canadian police finally arrested her, marking a turning point in the investigation. However, the complexities of extradition treaties allowed Shirley to be released the following day after posting $75,000 bail. Even though she had restrictions, her freedom made Andrew's family and friends more tense and scared because they were afraid of what would happen if they let the main suspect stay free. Her release brought with it a series of controversies and disturbing revelations. Forced to surrender her passport and report weekly to local police, she also faced contact restrictions with 8 people, including Heather and Andrew's parents, who had applied for restraining orders against her. Despite these measures, she continued to exhibit manipulative behavior that defied all logic. Even her treating psychiatrist, in a puzzling act, contributed financially to her bail. As the searches went on, Shirley's past became clear. It showed a trend of bad relationships and scary events. She had been married twice and had 3 children from those marriages. In 1993, a neighbor with whom she shared an apartment reported that Shirley was extremely harsh with her children, using physical punishment that included objects. Although her second husband denied these allegations, the case was dropped in 1994, and Shirley relinquished custody of her children to her parents, resuming her life as if nothing had happened. A former partner also described episodes of unstable behavior. He recounted how Shirley had violently pushed him to the floor on one occasion and, on another, faked a suicide attempt when she was found unconscious in her room, along with several letters, including one addressed to a psychiatrist. This event, designed as an emotional manipulation, ended up being yet another strategy in her history of toxic relationships. Shortly after her release, Shirley held a press conference at which she announced that she was 4 months pregnant. This news made Kate and David, Andrew's parents, fight again. They were sure that the child was their past son's and sold everything they owned and moved to Canada. Their goal was to obtain guardianship of the unborn child. On July 18, 2002, Zachary was born, and a DNA test confirmed that Andrew was the father. However, Shirley prevented any contact between the grandparents and the child. Kate and David, concerned about the baby's welfare, especially considering Shirley's treatment of their other children, were able to obtain 1 hour of supervised visitation per week, albeit under strict conditions. These visits, though brief and limited, became a ray of hope for the grandparents. Zachary represented the continuation of their lost son, a comfort they tried to cling to, despite adverse circumstances. On August 18, 2003, Shirley and her son Zachary's life took a scary path that shocked everyone. That morning, after not being able to reach her, Andrew's parents tried to call her, but were not answered. Concern grew when neither she nor the boy returned home. Authorities were notified, and a search was soon deployed that ended up revealing a tragedy. Hours later, in the waters of Conception Bay near Newfoundland, a fisherman found a heartbreaking scene. Floating in the water was the lifeless body of Zachary, hugging Shirley. Both victims were wearing heavy clothing and were bound with a belt, suggesting that Shirley had carefully orchestrated the act. An empty bottle of Ativan, a powerful sedative, was found next to the shore, cementing the theory that Shirley had drugged the toddler before jumping into the water with him. The investigation revealed even darker details. She had written letters blaming Andrew's parents and the justice system for what she was about to do. She expressed resentment toward those who tried to protect Zachary, stating that she would not allow anyone to take her son away from her. The messages were laden with emotional manipulation and anger, a hallmark of his personality. The news shattered Andrew's family members, especially Kate and David, who had fought tirelessly for their grandson's safety. The community was also devastated, wondering how someone with such a troubling record had managed to circumvent the system time and time again. The outrage soon spread, sparking a national debate about bail release and the protection of minors in high-risk situations. The details of Shirley's last day were pieced together through testimony and digital trails. She had apparently carefully planned the meeting with her ex-partner as an excuse to disappear. During her trip, she stopped her vehicle at several gas stations, where she was seen buying supplies and asking for directions. Everything seemed to indicate that Shirley knew exactly what she was going to do and had decided that no one could stop her. The case marked a before and after in the Canadian and U.S. judicial systems, sparking reforms that sought to prevent similar tragedies from happening again. For Kate and David, nothing could fill the void this loss left in their lives. Although overwhelmed with grief, their determination to seek justice and prevent similar tragedies led them to confront the legal system that they felt had failed miserably. There were many things in the way, though. Canadian authorities forbade the couple from speaking publicly about the case, under threat of imprisonment. Despite this, they decided to go out on a limb and appear on American television, denouncing the Canadian judicial system as primarily responsible for the tragedy. This courageous decision marked the beginning of their public struggle. They pointed directly to the judge, who allowed Shirley's release on bail, arguing that signs of her unstable behavior had been completely ignored. In addition, they denounced the psychiatrist who had facilitated the bail. The review of their actions resulted in a $10,000 fine, although this seemed an insufficient punishment for those who had allowed Shirley to continue to pose a danger. Kate and David's outrage resonated in Canada and the United States, attracting the attention of legal activists and child protection experts. In October 2006, a 500-page report was published by a criminal law specialist, detailing how negligent judicial actions directly contributed to the tragedy, highlighting that all could have been prevented if proper precautions had been taken. This report not only pointed out failures, but prompted concrete changes in the Canadian judicial system. 3 years later, in October 2009, the House of Commons introduced the Zachary Bill. This legislation gave judges greater powers to deny bail to people accused of serious crimes, especially in cases where their release could put minors at risk. The bill's passage represented a significant step forward, but for Kate and David, the satisfaction was bittersweet. No legislative change could repair the void left by the loss of their son and grandson. Regardless, the Buckbys turned their grief into a cause that impacted thousands. Their fight not only sought justice, but to protect other families from experiencing a similar tragedy. Each step they took showed that bravery and drive could make a difference, even when things looked the worst.